Should we not blank out or so?
Why are we doing that, Carl? We're going straight into it. Wow. Okay, welcome back to it.
Slightly different intro to usual.
I'm calling episode 37 of the Real Advisor podcast, TRAP Trap. My name is Lick Lincoln, and joining me as ever are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse: Carl the Voice Widger, Alan the Storyteller Smith, and Andy Ultra Hart. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing. So let's start unpacking it straight away with some more high-energy reviews read out by my good friend, the Right Honourable Mr. Andrew Hart.
Thank you very much, Nick. First is from Chris Hudson, entitled Easy Listening. Excellent podcast, very easy to listen to. My good friend George recommended it to me and I'm forever grateful. Shout out to George. Great content from four wise men that anyone new to the profession should be listening to it. Keep them coming. Slightly longer review now from W.A. Josh G, entitled This is a Cheat Sheet, 5 stars. As an advisor who is in the process of going it alone after 3 years of big corporate advice experience, this podcast is gold dust in a world where financial advice propositions can seem overwhelming and the thought of going self-employed can seem impossible. The experience and knowledge shared by the four guys is invaluable. Worth noting that equally as valuable, the information, also what they debunk is also incredibly valuable. Keep it simple, stupid, words to live by, 4 successful careers and business models bottled into our segments. This is a must listen for both new and old advisors. Back to you, boss.
Well, what a way to start January. Get us all going.
Right, thank you.
High energy.
Thank you, dear Trappist, for the reviews.
Speech.
Look, if any of you boys want to take over the review segment, you are
You're the man for the job, Mr. Motivator.
Jesus Christ. Back to you, boss.
Come on, get on with it.
Are we done? Right, thank you for those reviews, Trappist. Do appreciate it. And don't forget, please, our YouTube channel. According to our analytics department, 74% of you watch the YouTube channel but don't subscribe. If you've ever enjoyed our videos, please could you do me a favour and just click the little subscribe button? That would be lovely. Right, let's move on to some topical tidbits and put a timestamp on this.
Just before we do,
Nick,
Nick, can I just say something?
Yep. Why not?
In the last few days, I've had various conversations, and we'll talk a little bit more about this during the show, but with a number of advisors, young advisors, good advisors. And I said to them, do you ever listen to Trap? And they said, no, I've never heard of it. I go, what? Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that people have never heard of the Real Advisor podcast. So it is another shout out, a reminder based on what Nick just says. Please do, if you are a listener, if you are a Trappist, send a link, share it with your community, share it with the network. Let's grow the network. All right, carry on.
ABC, Alan, ABC.
Well worth
mate.
interjecting for. Right, Carl, revenue guidance on salary sacrifice, my friend.
Yes, indeed. What a way to start the show in January and of a Monday morning. Although I know, Andrew, it goes out on Thursday. My apologies. Anyway, so last year there was legislation that basically allowed people, I've mentioned it a few times, to put in whatever they want in Ireland into PRSAs, which is our pensions simplification product. However, there's been some questions around salary sacrifice, and the Revenue have updated their guidance on that. Just wanted to mention it here because I think it's vitally important that as a profession, if we are advising clients, that we know exactly what that revenue guidance says. So make sure that you get yourself up to speed with what the guidance is. And hat tip to Dave Quinn, who posted the latest revenue guidance on LinkedIn. That's where I saw it first. So thanks, Dave.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you, Mighty Quinn. Mr. Smith, relentless communications from direct-to-consumer platforms.
I've got a little bit of money on 2 different D2C platforms, bit of legacy thing. One of them I just wanted to test out what it was like to be a customer and have the experience. And I never really paid attention to this, but I started paying attention recently because I'm really trying to be focused and clean up my email inbox and things and get rid of stuff that I don't subscribe to and all that sort of thing. And so I noticed in the last few weeks that with these platforms, which I won't name because they're all the same, frankly, the email communication is freaking relentless. It's minimum once a week, often twice a week, of hot new ideas, this fund, that fund, our expert's prediction for this. And you start to read them, and they're always quite kind of interesting, superficially appealing. There's always a reason to believe that this could be a good investment to make. And I just thought the interests of these direct-to-consumer platform providers are absolutely not aligned with the interests of the investor using them. The more activity you undertake on a platform, the better it is for the platform. They're taking a cut, they're clipping the ticket in and out, buying and selling, all that. So it is clearly in their interest. Now, I know they're all highly regulated and everything else. They're not doing anything which is illegal, but you couldn't help but be influenced by regular, highly attractive suggestions for where you should move your money to. And I bet people are just looking at it and go, oh, that sounds interesting. Because you can do it, as we all know, one of the benefits of the evolution of technology in the last 10 or 20 years has been the ease of just clicking a button and moving your funds around. And so, I just sort of flagged that up as an issue for anyone of our clients or anyone else who might see who uses direct-to-consumer platforms.
Question on that, Alan. Have you recently, within the last week, noticed that they've told you that they have Bitcoin ETFs available? Because I have seen that, and I suppose what the consumer, the client, needs to understand is that the platforms don't give a crap what you invest in. They just want you trading. That's how they're going to make their money. So it suits everybody who's running platforms that are aimed directly at clients or consumers to get people moving their money from wherever they are now into Bitcoin, etc. So have you seen anything on that, or is that yet to come?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm not sure if that's actually... presumably if these are ETFs, we're going to talk about that in a minute, aren't we, Nick? But
the Bitcoin
I haven't
ETF
seen that yet, Carl.
The Bitcoin ETF has not been approved in the UK. It's been approved in the US. Approved in the US, so it's not yet approved in the UK. They are relentless, Alan. It's the opposite of invest and forget. They're basically marketing companies first and foremost. Secondarily, they happen to sort of be in the fund space and the share space. But yeah, they massively make their money on activity. Yeah, they are relentless. I mean, HL, the sort of beast in this space, has built his whole company from direct marketing in the years gone by. Their share magazines. It was, you got to turn that off almost immediately if you join HL. So yeah, all the platforms are very, very pro. Information sharing with their clients, but
there's no accountability. There's no accountability for it, because if they promote something and somebody invests in it and it falls 50%, there's no recourse. They just say, we provided you with information. We do not give you advice. There's no ombudsman service. There's no nothing.
Well, look at the Woodford funds that HL got caught up in. There's minimal recourse. It's buyer beware. That's the whole thing with the DIY platform, which is obviously different to an advised client. So yeah, the message and the story is the opposite of what we preach. But again, that's why we're needed and required.
Right, Andy, a year in returns.
Back to me. Okay, there's a link in the show notes. A couple of points on this. This is from a blog, I suppose, run by a guy I know called Novel Investor. It's the 2023. If you're going to look at anything in relation to this space in terms of all the data, it's like data overload. The top performing sector last year was information technology in the US. In terms of developed markets, in order of top performing, it was Italy, Spain, Denmark, then the USA. In terms of emerging markets, it was Hungary, Greece, Poland, Egypt, Mexico. So there's a link in the show notes if you're interested in this sort of stuff, just to glance your eye across it. Somewhat useful information. I like having a bit of a scroll on this sort of stuff every so often. Again, clients may or may not come across it, but every year there's different, people in the top 3, people in the top 5. But yeah, so that's enough on that.
Okay, well, coming back to Alan's initial point about direct-to-consumer platforms and communications, I do have a little bit of money, a tiny amount of money on Vanguard, just to see how they operate, and they're actually quite light in what they push out to me. They do the odd economic forecast and that kind of stuff, but they're generally pretty good. and they won't be one of the platforms that are going to now spam me with Bitcoin offerings, Bitcoin ETF offerings, because they're not entering the Bitcoin ETF market. That's obviously the current hot news in the cryptocurrency world at the moment. The fact that BlackRock have launched one. Vanguard are quite adamant they're not going to do it, and I think that's a good thing. In their press release, Vanguard state categorically Bitcoin, we don't view Bitcoin as an asset class. There are 3 asset classes and Bitcoin ain't one of them, and I totally concur with that. And I'm coming around to the view that whatever Cathie Wood of ARK says, you do the opposite, and you're probably in a good place. And Cathie Wood is livid with Vanguard for not offering a Bitcoin ETF. And there's a link to the Bitcoin Trade Rag, which talks about this. It's quite a big stance from Vanguard, and I think, Alan, you over the weekend there have been significant outflows from the Vanguard stable of funds as the hot investors seek some sort of crypto exposure via ETFs. God help them.
Yeah, that's right. There's the thing about Bitcoin in particular. If you ever look online, there's what they call maximalists. So it's kind of, if they like Bitcoin, they are absolutely relentless about Bitcoin, and nothing can stand in their way. And so there was a bit of, I saw it trending on X over the weekend, that they're all kind of rally. I mean, it was quite pathetic, really. Kind of, what are they? I don't know how many trillion Vanguard are assets under management, but there was sort of I'm trying to get a whole movement going. So let's close them down. They won't allow us to trade Bitcoin. I'm moving my money off the platform. I'm moving my $8,000 off the platform. We're going to bring them to their knees. So yeah, it's an emotive subject. It is, and as you know, Nick, you're going to mention it. I've done in my award-winning podcast. Mm-hmm. I did an interview last week. Not my soon-to-be award-winning Trap podcast.
It was very good. Yes, the Bulletproof Entrepreneur. Any Trappists who haven't clocked onto that yet, listen to it with Ray Trapani, who there's been a documentary on Netflix. It's current at the moment, isn't it? It's quite high on the Netflix charts about this particular Bitcoin scam, and yeah, really good. I believe you might have you got a story to tell us about this, Mr. Smith?
I've got a story to tell about the.
Grab yourself a drink, a very long drink. It's story time with Alan Smith.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so I just wanted to share, it's quite a sort of bizarre, funny story how this came about. So last Friday, I'm at home, watched the film. It's called Bitcoin. It's not actually about Bitcoin, but it's about the whole crypto market, and one token, as they're called in particular, that these guys, these kind of hustlers from New York created, called Centra Tech. Anyway, I watched it, and as I've done this in the past as well, as I think that guy would be really interesting to get on my podcast, which is all about things like this and sort of entrepreneurial endeavors. All the others have been legal. This one obviously is a criminal endeavor, which we're not endorsing. But anyway, I thought, I wonder if I can get in touch with him. So you just go online, find him, connect with him, sent him a message on that night, went to bed, woke up the next morning. He's replied, says, yeah, I'm up for it. Let's do it. So I go, right, great. Let's record a podcast with him. We can put it out next week, and we can surf the wave of the fact that it was kind of top 10 film on Netflix over that period of time. Anyway, he said, would it be okay to do it at 9:30 p.m.? And I think, yeah, I suppose so. I want to just turn this around quite quickly. I need to be a bit flexible. So I replied to him, go, yeah, no problem at all. That works. Let's do it on the Monday. Let's crack on. I enlist my trusty sidekick, George, who's my producer on the podcast, that kind of holds my hand throughout it, make sure that I'm doing the technical bits okay. And it's all set to go. And all of a sudden, I've just realized that that's 9:30 p.m. New York time, which is 2:30 a.m. It's 1:30 in the morning, and I think, oh my God, how am I supposed to do this? I think, oh, I'm going to have to reschedule. I'm going to have to cancel it. And I say, and again, George, bless him, he says, no, let's just do it. Just crack on with it. You just got to, go with the flow. I had a bit of email exchange with Ray Trapani, and I told him this is going to be 2:30 in the morning. And the reason that he had to do it at that time, 9:30, is because he does it from home. He's got 2 little kids. He said, "Look, I can't guarantee that it wouldn't be soundproof." So it's like proper domestic reality of him trying to. He said, "If I couldn't do it really any earlier, so I could change the day, but the time would have to be about 9:30 p.m. if you want to do it." And I think, "Oh my God, what am I supposed to do?" So I thought, "All right, let's crack on." I drove into my office, which is what I don't normally do, and I brought a sleeping bag with me to the office. A little mat, a pillow, a sleeping bag, some provisions.
Why did you do that?
I didn't know. I just thought what I was supposed to do. I thought, what? I mean, 2:30. It's the worst time. If it was like 4:30 in the morning, it'd be all right. Just get up really early, or midnight. It would just stay up a bit. But 2:30 is like the worst time to do anything. And I thought,
why did you need a sleeping bag to
just have a little bit of a rest before? At about maybe 10 o'clock, I could sort of put my head down, grab an hour or two of shut eye. That was my plan. And I did. About midnight, I laid down on the floor. I've got a little lounge area in the office. I laid down on the floor. Didn't sleep at all. Eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling.
Oh my God.
And so we cracked on and did it. And it's funny because if you look at we actually launched on YouTube as well, which is the first one we've done. And I was thinking, is it very obvious that it's 2 or 3 in the morning? And it's somehow not. You get a bit of an adrenaline boost. I mean, so we finished about 3:15 a.m. And of course, I'm completely buzzing there. I'm wide awake. I've just had this sort of podcast interview now. And it was mad. And I sort of stepped outside. Thank God I brought my car. So it's like, I'm in the city of London. It's 3 o'clock in the morning on a Monday night. It's not even as if it's a Friday night or a Thursday night or something. I can tell you there's a lot of bizarre characters walk around London at sort of the middle of the night. Thank God I got my car fully locked. There's some pretty strange looking people.
Look at that time of night. Including managing directors who've just been sleeping in their office.
Oh, God. So, the moral of the story is, first of all, you should just try things, reach out to people, even if it's unlikely that they'll respond to you, because you never know what will happen. And also, you've got to do what it takes. If you've got to do a podcast at 2 or 3 in the morning, just do it. And by the way, I had a massive team meeting the next day. We had a sort of kickstart to the year team meeting the next day. So, Don, my colleague, said, "You look a bit tired this morning, Alan." I said, "No wonder. Let me tell you why." So it was quite an experience, but all good. And so far, it's our sort of biggest ever number of downloads on the Bulletproof Entrepreneur. So thank you for mentioning, Nick. But that's the wide world, the crazy world is just referring to getting us back on track to crypto investing, Bitcoin, and everything that's attached to that. Because you're right, it has had approval by the SEC. I think there's 11 ETFs. Just a point on that as well, just to sort of round it off. It's bizarre that it was expected that as soon as that got approval, the price of Bitcoin would take off. And what's it done? It's fallen 15%.
But it did in the first few days. It went up 8.6% or something like that, and then it dropped off. But if you want to show clients the journey of your Bitcoin investment and the reason it should only form a very small part of your overall portfolio, last week is the perfect example. And you can also now on your iPhone, you can show them the long-term journey that the Bitcoin price has gone on. And just ask people, are you comfortable with that level of volatility where you might make fortunes, but you might lose fortunes too? So, I think the last week tells us everything we need to know about the Bitcoin story. And well done on the podcast. And I think for any younger advisors out there, shoot your shot. Right here you have Alan Smith running a very successful firm, still taking those risks. You never stop taking those risks. Anyway.
Okay.
Thank you,
okay,
Carl.
That's
last
enough.
point. Just the Bitcoin ETF. They're never buying Bitcoins. They're just tracking the price. Just so you know, they just whatever the price is. They don't own Bitcoins.
After the show, I'll talk to you about time zones. Alan.
There are only some that don't really exist anyway.
I'll take it offline.
Right. Next point, Alan. Next Gen Academy.
Oh gosh, I'm going to tie 2 things together here. Next Gen Academy is it's a training program run by guess what? NextGen, for those who don't know, I mean, they're pretty well known in the advisor community, particularly amongst the youngsters. I know
People
that Andy
know
Hart
who they are.
is a member. Yeah, they've got this academy, this training program, which they've completely redesigned. I think relatively recently. So we've just signed up. I think, I don't know, maybe about 10 people in our team to go through this, and it looks like it's a fabulous resource. Anyone who's the challenge with all of us running relatively small businesses is, we've got something grandly titled the Capital Academy, but it's difficult. We don't have the resources and the organization to be able to deliver this in the way that someone like NextGen has, who are sort of dedicated support team and platform. So we've signed up for this, and there's a lot of training through the kind of more logistical and exam-based type process, but there's a lot of training also on behavioral coaching, how to speak to clients, how to build relationships, all that sort of thing. So shout out to the NextGen Academy. We'll put a link in the show notes. If anyone is at that stage in their career where they can do with some development and some sort of training, then that's a resource, and it is. I think it's very, very good value for money. On a similar note, I just want to follow up as well.
Andy's got his finger raised. He wants to say something.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I've heard great things about it, and I know quite a few people that have been through it. I think the big change is it's gone from being really expensive to included in your membership. I think it was a few £1,000s, maybe £4,000 or £3,000 or something like that, and then they've just included it in their membership. So, I mean, wow, it's an amazing resource. So definitely do check it out if you're a firm owner and have people that need to be trained up, or also if you're one of those individuals as well. So yeah, good shout out, mate.
Cheers. And similar to that, similar but different, you guys know Verve, the Verve Advisor Incubator. I don't know, run by Kathy Harrison. I don't know Kathy, but I see and sort of track their progress online. And I noticed recently that they've got a program called Verve Advisor Incubator. So, and it's designed for anyone who is, if you are one of these kind of young advisors, we've talked about it a lot in the podcast, you're thinking about getting started, you're thinking of either, setting up your own business, or you are a sort of sole trader advisor and you're looking to grow and scale and maybe to hire one or two other advisors and build a team, all that sort of thing. You should check this out, the Verve Advisor Incubator. It looks like a fabulous resource. Training, development, mentoring, coaching for people going through that stage of their business journey. They also even give you access, if you're working from home, but you'd like to go and sort of work in an office 2 or 3 days a week, you can get access to that. Again, it's, to my mind, relatively inexpensive to get on the program. Now, I had a little exchange recently with, I think it's Haley Rabbits, who is the person who delivers this. The day this podcast goes out is the day that Verve Incubator, Advisor Incubator, is due to close. But because I said to her that I was going to mention it on the program, she's happy to extend it by a further 7 days, by a further week. And this particular, they do it in cohorts, right? You join it, then they'll do another cohort, I guess, later in the year. But for now. So if anyone's listening to this and you're at that stage, you're thinking of maybe spinning out and starting your own business, or you want to grow the business, or you're that kind of relatively early stage and you need some mentoring, development, guidance, maybe even an office space to operate from some days, check it out. I think the point of this, both NextGen and Verve, and there's a few other things as well, is we're beginning to get to the point where there's no real excuse. We've done a couple of shows about young advisors and taking a risk and so on. To my mind, it seems that there's less risk than there was, when some of us were doing it, because there was none of these resources around. So if you are halfway inclined to doing something entrepreneurial, get on with it. Speak to these people, engage with these platforms. It is not expensive. Neither of them are. No excuses. Crack on. Yes, Ultra.
Yeah, just on this, I had my annual sort of compliance visit from the company I use last week. I was speaking to my contact there about the percentage of people that get authorised now to go directly authorised. There's a bit of a seismic shift going on here. I mean, I went directly authorised in 2017. It was a painful process, but I got through it. Nick, you did it in 2008, so I think it was maybe a little bit simpler. I've heard apparently only 8% of people that apply now get directly authorised, because it's a very sort of arduous process with the regulator. So this is changing things because a lot more people are now having to go via network. So yes, to your point, Alan, there's loads of resources for build a business. This is how you attract clients. This is how you implement processes. This is how you build a team. But we've almost got a bit of a sort of curtailment of the entrepreneurial spirit because the regulator is only, authorising a very tiny number of firms.
Yeah, I think, but I think that's overall not necessarily a bad thing. I understand the process has got, much tighter. I understand you've got to write a pretty detailed business plan with forecasts, future profit and loss, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so it is definitely more complex.
And then you have many screening interviews, and they pick you up on quite a lot of things that.
In fact, Andy, you and I know somebody who's a first-class advisor who actually was declined. Well, he was declined through the interview process. They say try again in 6 months or something.
I think it costs about £2,200, and if they decline you don't get the money back. So it's not as if they say you're close to getting authorization. These are the areas we think you need to work on. Come back for an interview in 3 months' time. It's like decline, see you later, find another route. So I think they're going to make it slightly better. Again, I don't know it well enough. I'm just sort of dabbling in this space, but
I don't think it's I don't think it's a catastrophe to go through. We've mentioned again before a couple of the sort of modern style networks that seem far more switched on, proactive, digital style than some of the more legacy ones that we've been familiar with. So it's not the end of the road, at least to get you started, get underway, get all that kind of regulatory and compliance support. And maybe whatever, 2, 3, 5 years down the line, if you feel that you want to sort of spread your own wings, then you can do that with a bit more experience and go directly regulated, should you choose to do. I've just noticed, and a lot of it is to do with TRAP. I think we've kind of opened the doors or the minds of a few younger advisors. I'm getting a lot of calls, and you guys are as well, and messages and things from people in situations and circumstances and organizations that they don't love. They're recognizing there's a better way to operate. And there's a lot of movement in the advisor community right now. There's a lot of particularly younger advisors just looking to evolve, change, either set up their own show or, look towards migrating towards a company that really does embrace all the things that you and we all talk about. So it's an interesting dynamic space right now. And it's great that there's so many resources for people.
Absolutely. What's available now is that's out there is amazing. Okay, moving on to the next story here. And this was brought to my attention by a Trappist fan of ours. And we know this guy's a good guy, John Doyle. He's on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, as @Juniper_John. And, we call this the Real Advisor Podcast, right? TRAP, TRAP, the Real Advisor Podcast. And the reason we call it that is that what we do, the four of us, believe that real financial planning is about doing the financial planning, and the financial planning is paramount, and everything cascades off the financial plan, off the cash flow, which you then tinker with and alter and adjust over the years to get our clients to a successful financial outcome. But so many advisors still don't do it. It's not integral to their business, and they'll offer it as an add-on. And this story that John Doyle put on Twitter was in FT Advisor, and there's a link to it in the so-called show notes, and from about this firm called Fairstone, who are a decent-sized firm. But Matt Jeffrey, their head of office and independent financial advisor at Fairstone, said, with the ability to add on additional features such as a twice-yearly review, bespoke investment solutions, ouch, lifetime cash flow planning or estate planning, our services can be truly tailored to individual needs. Cash flow planning is not something you bolt on for those particular clients who are going to ask for it. By the way, none of them are going to ask for it because none of them know about it. So it's still out there, this thing where it's treated as almost an addendum thing, a sort of box ticking thing for those people that we think it's suitable for. To me, I still find it staggering, but it's just a reminder that the Real Advisor Podcast, what we're doing is still, I think, relatively niche, NICHE for our American listeners, niche, and is not the status quo. Any comments on that? Should we move on?
Yeah, I have a comment on that. Where does that comment, that quote, fit or sit with your latest consumer duty rules, which you boys told me said that the FCA wanted to see cash flow modelling in every single case? So is that not contravening the new rules?
I think the consumer duty is guidance. It doesn't say every single person must do by law, must do this. This is what we're beginning to expect in terms of delivering a comprehensive, they're all about value for money. But I think the point, so I think that's the direction of travel that the regulator wants the industry to move in, but it's, painfully slow, I think. And we said it before and we'll say it again. We operate in a bubble. I speak to you guys and the only other advisors really that I hang out with, we all know this, they get this, they deliver it to clients. It never ceases to amaze me. Without a plan, you don't know how to invest is the whole point. How can you possibly... Because the planning is about the direction of travel you're headed in and the timescales and all that other stuff. So to do it to invest without it is just a complete and utter nonsense. It's putting the cart before the horse, and it's completely nuts. Look, but that's just so blatantly obvious to us.
Yeah,
but
I suppose we all know that, and that's look. We have to be careful of being in an echo chamber as well, right? That we're just repeating the stuff. But so, can I just ask a question then? RDR were rules, and everyone had to abide by the rules, whereas the consumer duty is guidance. Like how? Yeah. So guidance sort is. Yeah. So that's pretty.
Well, it's guidance, but the FCA is. They have shown their teeth a bit early on.
Yeah,
I think their focus initially is around the asset management space.
Yeah.
And value for money and all this sort of thing. But it is well known. I think I saw Lancat tweeting out the other day about he feels that this year is when the regulator is really going to begin to focus on the intermediary market and the expectations. I don't think they can ever say you must deliver cash flow modeling. I don't think that's not their remit, but they would say this is what we would expect to have. But yeah, RDR was you had to be a certain level of qualifications. Commission was banned, etc. That was pretty much a legal regulatory type thing. This is more a value for money direction of travel that we're going to head in. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Fairstone are huge. They're not just a small firm. They're multi-billion. They're a private equity-backed national company. I think they're in Ireland, actually.
Yeah, they bought a firm in Ireland last year, and they've recently rolled out some kind of buyout option. But it's I read the press release, and it said for firms who are uninterested in a buyout now, and. So, but I'm sure they've all those details mapped out, and I think that the model they're using here in Ireland is what they've already done in the UK. So, yeah, it'll be certainly interesting to see what level of consolidation that brings. But again, makes me slightly pleased because that means there'll be more firms who will be under the ownership of a foreign investor, as opposed to being totally Irish owned. Anyway, move on.
Oh, he skirted it. Well done, Wodge. Well done, boys. Lovely done. Okay, final topical tidbit we got there. Jesus Christ, 33 minutes in and 14 heart attacks. Mr. Hart, timeline.
Yeah, so there's a couple of points here. A story came out last week about the top recommended. It's de facto listed the top recommended MPSs, so model portfolio services. So first shout out is to our good friend Abraham Ocansano, brother from another mother of mine. He was number one. The Timeline Classic 50 was the most recommended MPS fund for clients. So congratulations to him. I think they've just breached 4 billion assets under management. So that's a story in itself. And then below that, you've got, there's a link in the show notes. You've got Brewin Dolphin, Waverton, various other people. But the thing that's somewhat concerning is the amount of fixed interest and the lack of, a major tilt towards global equities, which is obviously something I bang on about, which is also something that we bang on about on this show quite a bit. So the frequent sort of descriptive terms, show up: balanced growth, balanced income, and growth balance. So balance seems to be the name of the game, but. So there's a lot of money moving towards these MPS solutions. Can
I ask a question on that, Andy?
Go for it, mate.
I know Abraham spoke before me at Humans Under Management, and he's like, I went, all right, the financial comedian went first, and now you're putting me on. He's a great guy, and just really thoroughly enjoyed his company.
Yeah, full of beans.
What does Timeline? Yeah, full of beans. He's just a great guy to be around. What does Timeline do? Is Timeline a platform, and then they also do then portfolios, or? So maybe answer that for me, somebody, please.
They're not a platform. They have their...
just to keep Nick on track, yeah, well, they are, well, full disclosure, Andy and I are both investors in it. So it was originally two different companies. There was Timeline, which was effectively a cash flow modeling system that evolved away from the traditional linear type cash flows and was much more kind of using a more complex methodology, but sort of as a cash flow type. And then they built onto it kind of onboarding tools, client onboarding. So you can ask clients information, and the whole thing is designed to be a seamless kind of end-to-end process. There was a separate company called Betafolio, which was effectively this MPS thing, but they've merged them together, so it's now one and the same thing. So I think ultimately, I don't know if you know, but in the States, they've got this idea of TAMPs, turnkey asset management programs. So it's a kind of soup to nuts. The entire, from the first time you meet a prospective client, all the sort of regulatory stuff, onboarding, risk profiling, et cetera, and then the managing the money. What they haven't got yet is a platform. So monies are held on third-party platforms, the usual suspects. But I can see them heading towards sort of creating their own platform as well in due course. But it's clearly a very attractive proposition, and a lot of advisors are using it. 4 billion assets under management so far. I met with them the other day. And I don't think this is any secret. I think this is publicly disclosed that they would be on track to head towards something like 8 billion by the end of this year, which is extraordinary. It really is.
Yeah.
On the Timeline
I wouldn't
Classic,
put anything past him, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to launch a platform. But as I say, I wouldn't put anything past him. Yeah, go on, Nick.
The Timeline Classic 50, is that 50% equities, 50% bonds?
Yeah, I mean, so again, congratulations to them for clearly, naming it correctly, because balanced and growth means nothing. At least the Timeline 50 is 50% global equities. Yeah, so the Timeline Classic 100 would be obviously 100% global equities. So yeah, they've framed the portfolios correctly.
Okay, great stuff. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We're at 37 minutes in somehow. And we've done the topical tidbits. We're giving it a dab with thrashing. I think it's time to move on to the meat and potatoes of the show, which we haven't even discussed in our pre-meeting rambles. And I don't know who's leading off on this. I don't know what the hell's going to happen, to be honest with you. The whole tech has been held together with Elastoplast and plasticine. But I think it's personal learning and development.
The whole tech is just not working today, and it's stressing Nick out. So apologies if there's some delays and all that kind of stuff.
I tell you what, no,
it's giving me... It's giving me a great laugh, Nick. I'm sorry.
The over-talking is for the Trappists, I apologise for the amount of over-talking today. We have got technical issues which account for some of it. Some of it's just down to us cretinous trap packers. So personal learning and development. Who wants to lead off on this?
I'll give it a go, if you like.
You've been quiet so far, Alan. You crack on. Thank you.
All right, now, okay, you go then,
No,
Nick.
I'm teasing. Come on.
Cheeky git.
If anyone wants to ask a question, Alan will answer it, right?
Come on.
No, I'm not doing it now. That's it.
It's going to sound...
Listen, we've had Trappists get in touch in the past and say, because we're always talking about in the Culture Corner, books we've read, podcasts, blah, blah, blah. So the four of us seem to be, consumers of information, knowledge, etc. And so we thought we'd share. We've all got sort of slightly different techniques. We all sort of absorb information differently. But I think for certain, I think it's one of the most important things you can do in business or life in general is to be an eternal student. Keep learning, keep listening, keep watching. And so we thought we'd share some of the ideas. I'll just run through quickly some of the technology that I use. I'm not a book listener. I don't use Audible. I've had it in the past. I don't absorb information in books very well through listening. Podcasts are okay because they're more sort of conversational, but books, when they're saying really interesting things that I want to remember, it's much harder to do in an Audible version. So I use Kindle, and I've got a standalone Kindle. The app is also on my phone, and I read books that way. And at any given time, I must have like 10, 15, 20 books backed up to read. And as I read them, I highlight things. There's often a sentence or a paragraph that I think that is really profound. That's interesting. I could use that again. Super helpful. But what you find is you never go back to it. You never listen to it. You never sort of remember it ever again. probably. So I was very pleased a couple of years ago to find an app called Readwise. I know you're going to mention it, Nick, as well, because you've sort of really got into it again recently. So Readwise is an app that connects to your Kindle, connects to pretty much anything, Google Books or even, social media, tweets and things like that. But what Readwise does is, and you can format it in whatever way you want, but I have it scheduled such that kind of first thing in the morning when I'm having a coffee, I get an email, and I have 10 randomly selected highlights from any book I've ever read in history, and it just sends them to you again. It just sends them. You can have more than that, you can have less than that, you can have as many as you want. I get 10 in the morning and 10 in the evening, and because it's so random, this is the thing called, in terms of internalizing and remembering some of these things, because you forget some book I read 5 years ago, I thought I completely forgot I read that. This is known as spaced repetition. If you get every now and again, you're reminded of something, that's the way you actually do internalize it and you do remember it. And often it's just bizarre because you think, for whatever I'm working on, I'm thinking about that particular time. The thing that pops into my email inbox at 6:30 in the morning, I think, that's actually really relevant and really helpful to what I'm doing. So I use Kindle, I use Readwise, and I also, for saving other documents, I use something called Pocket, which is another app, which if you're reading something online, reading a blog or something online, and you don't have time to read it, save it to Pocket and then go back and pick it up later. So that's my opening. Over to you, Nick.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that, Alan. And just coming on your point there, this is going to get down the weeds for people that aren't into these apps, but you can link your Pocket to Reader. Reader is the app that Readwise have just launched, and Reader is like this gathering space for all these things. It's not just your quotes, but you can snippets of articles on the web. You can highlight stuff on the web, and it will go into Reader as a highlight, which you can tag and so forth.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, if you're a paid member, you're a subscribing member of Readwise. You have access to the beta.
Will it scan your
Reader
dishwasher
app.
instructions as well, Nick?
No, I don't do those.
No, it will, Nick. It does. It does. It does physical books. If you've got a book,
no,
and
I'm teasing. I was just playing along with Andy.
If you take a photograph, it does OCR, and it recognizes it, and you can save it in the same thing. So you can have your dishwasher, your IKEA wardrobe instructions, anything you want, my friend.
Underfloor heating instructions. Helen Howcroft, if you're having your nails done in your nail boutique right now, you can laugh out loud, listen to this. Underfloor heating instructions. Store them as a PDF so when you're not around, your partner can know how to work it. Yes, continual learning. We're all mad on that, aren't we? We've all got the time to be able to do it as well. We appreciate some people are, if you're an employee, perhaps you don't have as much free time to do the personal development as perhaps we do, but we're all four of us are massively into it. And I read loads of stuff, and I Audible. I take your point, Alan, with Audible. I don't retain as much if I listen to a book. So I listen now. Alan Partridge puts out these or rather Steve Coogan puts out books on Audible. I listen to those on Audible, but not much else now. I've gone back to Kindle for the reasons you said, that you're reading something using your eyes. The brain tends to retain it, and you can highlight stuff. And Readwise, this thing, there's a lot of psychology behind Readwise. As you said, spaced repetition. It's okay reading something once, but you've got to read it like 6-7 times before it lodges in your cranium. And Readwise just throws these snippets out at you that you thought were worth annotating, and it pushes them to you, and you think, oh yeah, that's right, that book, that's where I learned that, and I've forgotten that. That's really good. It's just in terms of everyday stuff and managing. I'm not a solopreneur, I'm a solo advisor. So I do it all myself, and that's fine. That's the path I've chosen, and I love it. But I do need to use some apps to help me just gather my thoughts and gather my notes and make sure I do stuff, because I'm terrible at retaining things in my brain. And if something comes into my brain, it'll just be gone. I have to put it somewhere. I have to write it down or put it into an app so I remember to do it. And I use two apps that are really key for me. And Andy, I know you use both of these, or you certainly did. One is very clean and tidy. One is a much more in-depth app. And the first clean and tidy one is something called Google Keep, which is just purely a to-do list app. It's nothing else. And you can put it on your phone, on your computer. And if I'm out walking, and now and again, believe it or not, guys, the odd inspiration does come into my head, but I haven't got a pen on me. I'm miles from home, and I think, oh, Christ, by the time I get back, I know I'll forget about this. So I just open up Google Keep on my phone. It's clean, bam, put the thought down, and it's there. Good thing with Google Keep is, this is a sad thing, but it's a good thing, it will buzz you based on your location. So I set up Google Keep. I have a to-do list in there, and I said, when I get home, notify me. So obviously it tracks my location on my phone. I'm out for a walk. I come back after 2 hours. I get back through the front door, and my phone pings me with a notification from Google Keep saying this is the to-do things that you notified when you're out in the war. That's just really handy. And the more in-depth one is an old sturdy favourite, which I think might be on its last legs. There's always talk of it just collapsing, which is Evernote. And I use that extensively. I use the paid version of Evernote. The prices have gone up quite steeply, but I get a lot of value from it. You can just put all your life into Evernote. Yeah, things like manuals, but just whatever you want to put in, PDFs, clippings off the web. It's just a really good data-based tool, and you can tag things, which I love. So you can have one article can have multiple tags. It could be politics, could be self-development, whatever you want to do. And that's what I use to try and keep a grip of the stuff. Because as I say, my brain I don't know if I got early onset dementia or something, but I just don't retain stuff. I can remember what I did 20 years ago. I can't remember what I did last week. So having the electronic sort of Lincoln in this cloud, which is a frightening thought, is really helpful for me. Andy, you're obviously you're big into your tech and everything, and your digits raised. You're going to say something to slag me off. I can feel it. Go on, get it out.
No, it's fine. Digital Lincoln. I've just had a little bit of a thought about that. I'm just going to give some points. We're blessed in this mighty profession that part of it is lifelong learning. It's amazing. We're sort of inadvertently paid to become smarter and wiser over time, which means we can, help more clients, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So in terms of what information I consume, I'm quite big on Audible. So I do listen to most of the books. However, I'm being a bit more intentional in 2024 and trying to read a few more dusty books. I believe I retain the information a lot better. I've dabbled with apps like Blinkist, but it doesn't really work for me. I consume a lot of newsletters, a load of podcasts, and we pretty much all read all the main books that come out. And it's a bit mixed, isn't it? It's business books, personal finance, marketing, lifestyle, personal development, biographies. I think I read about 50 books a year. I feel a jingle coming on. In terms of apps, I've got the Kindle app on my iPad, on my iPhone. I use Google Keep, as Nick said, and I use Dropbox as well to sometimes store a load of information. So, the high level thing is, we're very, very lucky as professional financial advisors that, self-employed work for ourselves. A huge chunk of our, week, months, years is spent consuming more information. We're very, very, very lucky from that point of view. I don't think all professions do exactly what we do. So I'm very pleased that I've landed in this profession accidentally, and it sort of swallowed me up over the last 20 years. But over to you, Carl, with some final points, or you, Nick?
Well, just before we move on to Carl, I think Alan and Max have to say as well, we're all being very good today and not looking at each other, aren't we, on the screen, and not picking up on the non-verbal cues. We've got it down to an art form. Google, I'm glad Google Keep, prosaic story why Google Keep is brilliant for me. I've got a Google Keep packing list, so wherever I travel, everything is on there, and I use it every time. And when I go abroad anywhere, I always have everything with me, including, of course, my dressing gown. Englishman can't go abroad without his dressing gown. Penny refuses to keep a list. Penny invariably, whenever she goes somewhere, leaves something behind. It's just like, why not have a list of stuff?
Imagine living with him. Jesus Christ. We've got him every 2 weeks for an hour and a bit.
Alan, did you have something to interject?
Yeah, just on Andy's point, and actually you said it as well, Nick, this idea of if you run your own business, you manage your time. No, it's regardless, because learning it's so easy to learn now. People go for walks, people commute, people go to the gym, people drive cars to clients. It's not about time. It's not if you're an employee of a company and you've got to show up and do your hours. There is no excuse not to learn. And to me, it has the single biggest impact on people's long-term success is learning. Reading books, listening to podcasts. There's just multiple. Whatever. If you want to watch YouTube videos, some people are audible, some people are visual, some people
books.
Yeah, whatever. So I just want to make that point. You should be. There's no excuse now, but you should be a learner. Find stuff.
But there's
Carl. Sorry.
The research is in that it's the correlation between the amount of books that you could read over the course of your lifetime and your success in life, measured in material terms and in your earnings, the correlation is incredible. So, households without books generally will be households that don't, perhaps, live the more fulfilled life in terms of earnings, at least. Now, Carl, I think you might have a take on this, my friend.
Yeah, so we have our annual planning day tomorrow. So I've been thinking about this quite a lot. So this might be a little bit of a ramble. So stand by. And they'll also see that I was deeply uncomfortable with the content of some of today's podcast, owing to the Irish versus UK cultural differences. Thanks for that, Nick. So for me, the two greatest predictors of success for probably any small business owner, I would say, are number one, resilience, and number two, growth mindset. And one thing I would say I have failed from time to time as things got tough and I had to become more resilient is I forgot about the growth mindset piece. So that's the first thing I would say. The predictors of success are not only resilience, it's resilience and a growth mindset. So growth mindset for me is, having that ability to be a sponge. So to take lots and lots of different things in. So it's not necessarily about just doing podcasts or just doing Audible, but I'll talk about a couple of things in a minute. But it's what we all need to understand in this brilliant profession that we're so privileged to operate in is that we're not inventors. We're not sending rockets into space, right? Yeah. Financial planning exists, and there are so many examples of absolutely amazing people who have been there, done it. So I know Andy will talk about Nick Murray, right? People who have massive, massive experience. So I think it's totally okay in terms of the financial planning learning that you're doing is to just go and find the people who you believe have the same values as you. So that does lead to a little bit of an echo chamber, but that's okay if you're trying to build a business and you're trying to learn and you're trying to have that growth mindset. And it's also okay to clone, right? And we've spoken about this loads of times, right? But it is, stuff, there are only so many key principles to real financial planning.
Yeah.
You can't make up anymore. It's just how, find ways, how can you deliver these key principles in the best possible way? How can you deliver them to your own team? How can you deliver them to your existing clients? How can you deliver them to, potential clients down the line? They're the kind of things in terms of learning that you should do. And then there's any number of self-help books, entrepreneurial books, whatever you want to do. So in no particular order, for me, podcasts and Audible probably are the two big ones right now. On the podcasts, I don't tend to spread my wings as much as you guys. I tend to keep coming back to the ones that I like. But I have got some great recommendations, to be fair, from Trapp. So in the show notes, going back through episodes, and I listen to a lot of stuff. And probably because we're in the echo chamber, a lot of it does resonate with me. So I think there's great podcast material to get there. Audible, so I'm the total opposite to Alan and to Nick. I find it very difficult to read books, although I'm reading at the moment one chapter a day, my new morning routine, The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. I haven't got it in my culture corner because I haven't finished it yet, Andy. But it's really good. And and I am actually enjoying the discipline of sitting down. But you see, that's the difference for me. It is a discipline as opposed to you boys go and enjoy it or whatever. So maybe I can turn one into the other. On Audible then, I might have 2, 3 on the go at any one time. And in this growth mindset piece, right? So we spoke about the Eckhart Tolle book and I couldn't get it at all, right? But I am trying to push myself to read some stuff that will push me a small bit. So one I have just finished in my long walks that have become part of my routine as a result of my sore back is the Anthony DeMello book called Awareness. And I can't remember where I saw the recommendation for this, but I listened to that. It's very similar actually to the Eckhart Tolle, but probably a little bit more relatable for me, but definitely on the same vein. So I would say, push yourself to maybe go a little bit outside your comfort zone. Like I would love the Atomic Habits and the Essentialism. They're all pretty much down the same vein, and they're all pretty much telling me the same thing, stuff that I already know, but that I should be doing a little bit more of. Andrew, do you want to interject there before I keep going?
No, I was just saying, you mentioned Atomic Habits, mate, right on cue, so all good. You carry on, mate. I've got a book recommendation to share in a minute.
Excellent. Newsletters, right? So newsletters, finding people, and I'm going to give credit to Alan here. So Alan thinks that I don't listen to him all the time, right? But I do. I subscribe to Dave Zoller as a result of a Trap recommendation. Really good. Some of it, maybe not so. But hey, does any of us, put content out there that all of it is brilliant? No. And I think, so this goes back to if you want to be the best financial planner, that you absolutely can be. There's people out there producing amazing content, and you just have to subscribe to their newsletters. Another one then that I'm really enjoying, but it's because it's January and the mindset is reset and refocus, is Dan Murray Surter. Is that the one? I think, Alan, you recommended that one as well. If I'm going to give Andy a plug, because it's deserved, Home Premium is just fantastic, and I share it with all of my people in here all of the time. So that's a mix of, financial planning, newsletters, and personal growth newsletters. That kind of stuff I think could be really good. I've said it time and time again. Insight Timer is the best 70 euros I spend every single year. If you're having any struggles with your sleep, with anxiety, with stress, get on to meditation. And I promise you, if you're having the struggles with sleep, anxiety, and stress, it will not work at the start, but stick with it. And there's loads of different types of meditations you can do. So some are guided, you can do yoga nidra, but some are just little talks that can put you to sleep. Alan.
Thanks, Carl. Very insightful. I use Calm, and I've been using that for quite a long time, and does all that as well. But just another point on this, and this is a kind of a confession, I suppose, or disclosure, and bring us right up to date. I've just done something over this weekend to hopefully help myself. I find myself during idle moments, like I'm buying a coffee in a coffee shop, or I'm just getting my phone out, and I go on social media and I scroll social media, and I'm very aware of this. Andy spoke about it, I think, last year. This, dopamine. Was it called Dopamine Nation or something? The book. There's a book. It's very well documented. We know if we see something on social media, and the world is obsessed with it. If I'm on a train, everyone's scrolling Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of stuff, and it gives you a dopamine hit, and it gives you a little buzz like that. And book reading doesn't give you the same. Sitting down and reading long form books for an hour at a time does not give you that same dopamine high. And I'm also aware of this, and I know that if given a chance, often if I'm just waiting in Starbucks for a coffee, I'll flick through Twitter, I'll see what's going on in that, and then I don't like myself for it because it's detracting from me reading long form books. So the only way of dealing with this, and I've just did it over the weekend, I've downloaded an app called App Blocker, and I tell you what, you can't break into this. Short of throwing your phone in the bin, you can't. I've scheduled it for certain times, and I very much limit the time I can use any form of social media. Which also, the way I set it, also includes WhatsApp, so I don't get all the nonsense from you guys on such frequency. And so I just block myself out, and I can't use it. And it's very interesting because after a while, you think your natural response is, I'll quickly jump on my phone and check Twitter or LinkedIn or something. I think, oh shit, I can't. What should I do now? Oh, I might as well open the Kindle app. I could read 20 pages of a Kindle app of a Kindle whilst I'm doing that. And it's far better. So I think it's understanding your limitations. As we know, it's a bit like we were saying before with the D2C platforms bombarding us with information as humans we respond to. Similar with social media. We respond to this stuff. There's no question about it. We're only human. So the only way you can deal with that is by eliminating the option of actually doing stuff which is kind of negative in the short term. Andy, you got a thought?
I'm very intrigued to hear how you get on with that, Alan. So we'll talk about that as it develops. I'm just going to mention this book. This, according to me, I believe is the Bible for this mighty profession, Nick Murray Around the Year. It's basically 365 snippets of various things that you do as a financial planner. So in 2023, I tried to read a section every day. I got to July, so I'm starting 2024 in July to the end of the year. Get your hands on this book if you can find it. It's pretty thick. I've been through it about 4 or 5 times. So it's a massive recommendation for Around the Year by Nick Murray.
You'll be glad to hear, Andy, that Nick Murray is doing a prospecting conference, seminar, and Meadows Ireland have signed up to it. So we're all going to watch it together. So that's happening. Everybody should have got that invite. Yeah. So no, it's really good. It's just, it bores me because I've seen so much of it and I just think it's a lot of repetition. But that doesn't mean that it won't be very helpful for a lot of the new people that we've got in the business. On your point, Alan, about the social media and that kind of stuff. So look, you can put in app blockers and all of that kind of stuff. But I think the first point of all of that is to get really intentional with it and to, actually talk to yourself about, no social media at night. I've started doing it. Like Andy says, let's see how that's going for me in a month's time, right? Because it's January, it's kind of easy. I have to say, I have said this to you guys privately. Twitter it's definitely not giving me any dopamine hits at the moment. I am more and more being less and less intrigued by it, not loving it at all. And I do see a lot of the people that I would have followed on Twitter are now upping their LinkedIn game big time. Stephen Bartlett would be a great example of that. So I'm finding everything that I need on LinkedIn, and I'm not finding any of the aggro, any of the people trying to push out their views over and over again.
Get yourself over to TikTok, mate. That's where you learn the most. That's
I
dopamine overload.
I'm
TikTok
nearly
is
a
evil.
year.
TikTok is evil.
I'm nearly 2 years off Instagram and Facebook, and when I deleted them, I thought it was a temporary measure, and I never, ever, ever went back in. And is my life better for it? Without question. And I'm seriously considering whether I might be going down the same road on Twitter and maybe focusing a little bit more on LinkedIn. And I know, Nick, you have views on LinkedIn which don't agree with mine, but I am trying to get better with LinkedIn. I'm actually, they're doing a course. I don't know if you guys have had emails from LinkedIn, but they emailed me directly to do content, how to do content on LinkedIn. I've got a Zoom thing tomorrow with obviously not just me and LinkedIn, but a whole host of people being talked at by LinkedIn people on how to get better content and how to get it out there. So I am looking at it, and I think you've got to silo them off, right? Twitter is just for front of mind, get it out there. You see something, you think that's a load of old bollocks, and you tweet it out there. LinkedIn is definitely not for that kind of banter. It's it has its issues, as we all know, and there's a lot of self promotion on it, which is ghastly, and there are a lot of recruiters on there because that's their playground. But they're two different things. The app. Sorry, Carl, you've got more to say, Carl? Should I just ramble for a second? No, that's pretty much me. Like I'm much more old school and I don't do the app, so I'll do voice memos to myself to remind me of stuff, and I all the time always have my trusty diary, and I just write stuff in there. So yeah, I'm trying to go more analog and avoid the digital, which might make me a dinosaur, I don't know, but it clears my brain.
It's whatever works, man.
That's the
whole point of this. The whole point of this section is whatever works for you. So some people have. We all, as long as we get the results we need, it doesn't matter what you do. And I'm quite impressed, Carl, that you can write. That's another skill I didn't know you had. So we learned. We learned this. I was going to say, in terms of Alan, I don't have an app that blocks other apps, but what I do when I go out for a walk, I do put my phone into bloody airplane mode, just so it's not pinging or buzzing or vibrating. I know if I get it out of my pocket, there'll be nothing on there, no notifications. I think, oh yeah, back of my pocket. I don't.
Hang on a minute. That's an obvious one. Ultra told me that years ago. Remove all notifications, which is what I do.
You've got to make your smartphone dumb. Yeah, I've got no notifications.
In fact, Nick, you sent me a whole big long. It took me about 4 hours to try and do it. You got to, optimize your phone. If you can become a victim of your phone. I mean, my God, my teenage son, Yeah, when I take his phone off, the thing is literally alive. It vibrates constantly. It's in your hand, it's buzzing. I said to him, it just stresses me out even looking at your phone. So I have no notifications.
You end up giving it back.
Yeah, well, I have no notifications, but then I am tempted, and it is usually those, I've got 5 or 10 minutes, let me scroll through this. And now, so I have to take action, and I have to block myself from doing it, and then give myself permission at certain times to do it. So I'll let you know how it goes. It's early days.
A technical point on the iPhone. On the iPhone, you can remove all apps from your home screen. So I've removed all of my apps from my home screen. So I go into my iPhone. When I'm like, I want to book a hotel with Expedia, I have to find Expedia. When I want to go onto LinkedIn, I have to find LinkedIn. So get all of your apps off your home screen. They're
that was in that article.
But they're not on the home screen.
Create friction. If you create just a little bit of friction between you and the thing that is not a good thing to do.
But yeah, certainly removing Instagram and Facebook, Carl. I'm with you on those two. They are the bad ones.
Yes, you have been on them, Alan Smith. That's a lie.
Hang on a minute. On what? I've dipped my toe in both of the water. The thing about Facebook is, which I've never been involved in. I'm on it. I've got an account. I've got a TikTok account, for Christ's sake. But there are some communities and groups that exist. Like, for example, the Dent Key Person of Influence, and it's only on Facebook. So I've had to register for that. And for whatever reason, I'm very against Zuckerberg and Facebook and Instagram and that whole kind of ecosystem. I think it's evil, the stuff that they're doing, and some of the challenges that mainly teenage girls are having with Instagram, etc. So I don't love it. But yeah, I've probably got to register for most of these things, but not very active. Although you're right, Andy, I dipped my toe in TikTok, and that is just a different level altogether. I had to put it down. It's stressful.
I've learned a lot from TikTok.
It's evil. TikTok is
depends on what you follow and what you're interested in.
Becoming a rant about social media, and we're kind of going away from anything to do with financial services. So let's we can talk about this. Anyone can talk about this whenever they want to. It's not immense value. Okay, I think we've given that a damn good thrashing. We happy with that, gents? We are at 1 hour and 7 minutes in. Okay, Carl's giving me the thumbs up, and it's Carl the one I defer to. Let's without any further ado move on to the next section of the show. And as I click the sound for the Trappist questions, of course it doesn't work. So ding dong, that must be posted at the door. You know how it works. And she's brought a bulging sack of Trappist questions. We are getting through them. Thank you, Andy, for that. Let's see if the letter opening transition works. God, if there's an alternative to Riverside, anyone knows of it, please do let me know. The first question, if you want to send us a question, you know, in on Twitter that Carl doesn't look at anymore, but on the pinned tweet at Advisor Podcast, there's a link and you can submit your questions. We do go through them. We're now up to October from last year. So if you posted a question in October, November last year, your question will be answered shortly. We've got a long one today from a nun practitioner. It's more of a comment than a question, but I think it'll resonate with us as practicing financial advisors or those of us in the advice chain. And the listener's name is Mark A. He's on Twitter as, this is at ABB04645603. Catchy. And he says, been listening to your great pile of trap for a while now. I'm not a financial advisor, but I work in telecoms. I had an actively managed company, ABC Wealth Management, put me into a Standard Life SIP. They're an active IFA. They put me into a Standard Life SIP. Even with my limited knowledge, a few things didn't feel right, and I had that gut feeling that it was oversold. So a few points to mention. Traditional pension companies, Standard Life or whatever their new name is, they will read your email within 38 days. Some customer service, that is. Yes, well, welcome to our world, Mark A. His IFA firm, ABC Wealth Management, send out a weekly market commentary email, which is massive. And I'm not sure how any of his clients would have time to read it. It's a huge mail, and Mark has sent me a copy of the email over, and it is just unbelievable. It's just economic prognostications, how they're tilting their portfolios based on that week's events. It's really is the stuff from the one of the circles of hell. His third point, Mark said, I've been in their ABC Active 7 fund, which is one of their highest risk factors. In other words, it's got high exposure to equities. And then Mark goes on to say that we simultaneously, as setting up my SIP, we put some money into Vanguard funds directly, and they have done better than this actively managed ABC Wealth Management fund. Lastly, Mark says, ABC's funds are pretty much hidden and their portal is useless. So the trust for me wasn't there. So it sounds like Mark is no longer a client of ABC Wealth Management. Sorry for the essay, and hoping none of you are friends with Bob at ABC Wealth Management. P.S. Keep up the good work. You guys are great. So not a question there from a Trappist, but an interesting insight from someone who's outside of this thing of ours. This is a retail investment client, a punter, and his experience of the other side of the IFA nomenclature includes such a broad church, doesn't it, of people? And this is a Joe Public guy who's experienced what we would call probably the rougher end. Any thoughts, gents?
Is that the biggest red flag? A weekly market commentary email? Is that
it's one of them, isn't
on
it?
The investment side? Are we saying that's the biggest red flag to avoid?
There's so many red flags in that. Why would he use Standard Life, i.e. the old Phoenix Life, for example? And why is he emailing them directly, not going through his advisor, which he's paying handsomely for? Yeah, weekly updates. I mean, what the hell? On a 7-day cycle, we're going to move up your funds, or we think now's the time to go to emerging markets. It's nuts. I mean, I read all the whole thing, and sad to say, we do get some flack for being critical, as we have said in the past, and calling out. And of course, it's not actually Bob from ABC, and it wouldn't be appropriate for us to share the name, but it represents all the things which are wrong with our sector. Unfortunately, this kind of relentless focus on fund management activity, moving stocks and bonds and funds on a weekly basis, and in doing so, significantly underperforming his Vanguard funds, just buy and hold long term. It doesn't sound like there's any structure or any financial planning. It's suboptimal, to use a Nick Lincoln word, and just disappointing. And I'm glad that we're able to sort of shine the light on this and Mark hopefully he's learned a bit from our ramblings over the last year or two. Carl.
It sounds like on the question that he's left this firm and he's now, hopefully, if he's listening to us, he's gone to a real financial planning firm. Wouldn't it be amazing to hear from him to say, this was my experience with active management, blah, 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 and here's now my experience with financial planners. And it would give us a really good insight as to the key things from a client's perspective as to what we should be focusing on in terms of messaging. Nick?
Well, funnily enough, Carl, I've actually got an email in my inbox from Mark. I sent him an email this morning, so I will ask him that question. I'll just say, are you no longer with ABC? And if so, what is the firm you've gone to like, and what experiences do you want to share? And so I'll get an update. And if he comes back to me, I will bring it into a future show for sure. Andy.
Well, yeah, no, he says about this weekly email being huge, and as if any clients have time to read it. Even if the clients had all the time in the world, it would add nothing to their outcomes. This is the misconception. I wish I had more time to read more investment market commentary and therefore I'd make better decisions. No, it's the opposite. It's very weird and countercultural and counterintuitive. So again, our message is, polar opposite of what, mainstream financial and investment media want to sort of pollute clients' brains with. So yeah, it boils my blood.
Okay, so what are we at? We're at 73 minutes in. We've got another question in the hopper. Chris Bowers, we will answer your question, my friend, in the next episode of Trap, episode 38. But for the moment, I think that's it. And we should pretty much, with haste, move on to Culture Corner. He clicks and waits. And there's no sound on Culture Corner either. This is great, isn't it? Okay, so Culture Corner. Shamble, yeah, thanks, Carl. Culture Corner. We'll start off with Carl. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Go on. What's your Culture Corner, Carl? And he's muted.
It is
Kitz's podcast,
the Michael Kitz's podcast, where I can't remember the lady that he interviewed, but it's basically around there's a massive problem in the financial planning profession whereby advisors, planners are trading wealth for health. And it was just perfect for me for January. I think everybody should have a listen to this. You need to make sure as you're progressing through your career that you don't leave the health bit to one side. Because all you're going to do, if you don't make time for exercise, nutrition, fitness, mind your mind now, you're going to have to make time for illness down the line. That's for sure. So, yeah, I thought it was really good I haven't listened to Kits actually for a while, but that one kind of grabbed my attention. And yeah, really enjoyed that one. Perfect for January and New Year's resolutions and all of that. So there you go.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that, Carl. My one is a book that I read on Kindle, and it's a book called Dead in the Water, Murder and Fraud in the World's Most Secretive Industry. And the shipping industry really, not figuratively, literally is another world in our world. I mean, the oceans, what are they? 80% of the world's surface is ocean. And we don't know half of what goes on under the sea, and what goes on the sea is just another world. And our dependence on these super tankers and these massive container ships is, I don't think we understand how dependent we are on them. And this is a really, really good story. It's 300 pages about a ship called the Brilliante Virtuoso, which was allegedly attacked by pirates in the Gulf of Aden, which is in the news in a minute because our unelected prime minister, not elected by the populace or the party members, is trying to start World War III by taking some bombings out there. He thinks he can control the Red Sea, can't control the English Channel, but there you go. Anyway, just so between Yemen and Somalia, the ship was allegedly attacked by pirates in 2011. Turns out it wasn't actually as straightforward as that, and the story is fantastic. It goes into everything. It goes into the Lloyd's of London market, what you're doing for your high net worths. It involves the Met Police, the City of London Police, and the whole shipping world is nuts. You know, the flag of convenience phrase comes from that. That tickled your hand, didn't it? You know, so you have these massive ships that they fly under the flag of Liberia or Panama typically because they have very lax regulations about the state of ships. The ships are owned by companies that are based in Bahamas or Nassau because for tax reasons. The directors of these shipping companies are there based somewhere else, typically Greece. And for historical reasons, Greece has a lot of shipping magnates, and the whole world it's just really, really difficult to know what the hell is going on at any one time. And the people who run these ships, you know, you've got to be a certain, they're men, they're always males. You've got to be a certain mentality to go on these ships. It's hard bloody work. You're away from your family for months on end. It's dangerous. And this story is really interesting, and it pulls everything together, and it kind of links to our world because it's to do with the city, it's to do with insurance, it's to do with Lloyd's of London, it's money, it's fraud, and I would really, really recommend it. You don't have any interest in in shipping or what have you to find this an engrossing read, so I highly recommend that. There we go, Mr. Smith.
Yes, good shout, Nick. I don't know, but I've got that book. I don't know how I've got it. I must have seen it elsewhere. I haven't read it yet, but it looks very, very intriguing. Just a quick point with all these glitches and technical faults and everything this time. Thank God the Trappists love them, because I remember being, when we had a chat, I think at Hum last year, spoke to a bunch of people and I said, yeah, it's a bit scrappy. We don't really edit it. And he goes, no, we love that. We love the amateur nature of it. This is definitely not what you call a highly produced, overproduced, slick professional show. And it's unfortunate when the technology, and you're right, Nick, you're doing your level best there, but the tech has let us down in terms of the drops and all the rest of it. But hey ho, there we go. Someone who has got
loving our echo chamber.
Yeah, we're loving it. Someone who has got this whole kind of content thing down to a fine art is the author of my recommendation for Culture Corner, a close personal friend of mine, Nick.
Right. Okay.
Go on. No,
the bell's not working.
Can you? Oh my God.
Bing. Yeah.
A guy called Ali Abdaal, who I've had a few chats with in the last year or so. I'd love to get him on my pod, and he may well do that. Very entrepreneurial guy. He's a guy who was qualified as a doctor, was top in Cambridge, and started as a side hustle a YouTube channel, which he's obviously now, but he's doing full time, highly successful. All the information is quoted. He's doing about 5 million revenue a year. It's effectively a tiny, small media company creating high quality content on YouTube and other places. His new book just come out. It's called Feel Good Productivity. And I've just read it, and it is really good. It's not one of these boring productivity books about, I don't know, get up early in the morning and do time blocking and stuff. It's backed with a lot of evidence and a lot of science, which I like. And really, as the title would suggest, it is about being productive whilst also enjoying it and feeling good. So he has some very useful tips, tactics, and recommendations to make your work a better, more enjoyable, and indeed a far more productive process. It is worth reading. It is a good book. Ali Abdaal, Feel Good Productivity. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, Ali.
Ultra.
Okay, I've got 3 recommendations. The first one is Visual Capitalist. They've put out a recent article called The Top 10 Retirement Planning Mistakes. This is by a company called Natixis, who I believe is a French company. I'll read out the first 2 or 3. Number 1, underestimating the impact of inflation. Number 2, underestimating how long you will live. Number 3, overestimating investment income. This is a sort of list of why we exist, basically. So I do recommend checking that out. Any comments on that?
Wow.
No.
Just wow.
No, that's just mind-blowing. Move on. What else have you got?
Okay.
Only 2 more to go.
Next, I've got Yuval Noah Harari, who is the author of *Sapiens*, is on Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast. There's a YouTube link there. And finally, it's a book recommendation that I'm reading at the moment quite sort of actively. It's called The Family Board Meeting. I don't know if any of you have come across it. It's the sort of subtitle is You Have 18 Summers to Create Lasting Connection with Your Children. So yeah, it's got a whole sort of process and way around how to spend quality time with your children. And also it's quite relevant for entrepreneurs that have children. It's hit me between the eyes, basically, this book. I don't know if you boys have dabbled in this in the past, but it's a strong recommendation for people that have young kids that also run their own businesses. They're my 3 culture corners.
Okay.
I just love the way that you share them with so much energy, passion. It's incredible. I'm buying that book right now.
Freaking culture corner, mate. It's just links to interesting things.
Yeah. Culture corner, not culture corners.
Yeah.
Leave ultra alone. My father, who fractured his femur at the end of last year, is recuperating and he's reading. He's not been a great reader. He has loads of books, but they're on specialist subjects. But he's just started reading heavily in this rehab thing. And he said, "Have you read this book, *Sapiens* or *Sapiens*?" I said, "Yeah." So he's just finished that, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. That's Harari's well-known book, isn't it? How do you say it? Would you say *Sapiens*?
Yeah.
Would you say *Sapiens*?
Sapiens.
I think he sold something.
Homo sapiens.
He sold 18 million books. I think he's the highest selling sort of modern author. It's pretty staggering.
Okay. There you go. Right, gents, we're at 82 minutes into this catastrophe that we call the Real Advisor podcast. So I think we'll make it a wrap for this episode.
Oh,
we've emptied our
can only get
the
better.
latest pile of trap.
I think
It's
you
just
should
been flushed
definitely
down
watch.
a new bend of time. Go on, talk over me. Why not
Definitely watch this one on YouTube.
Yeah, you need some
God.
visuals for this. Oh my
I'm going to give you
Lord.
I'll give you some bloody visuals.
Come on.
Thank you, dear
Wrap
Travis.
this up,
Precious
Nick, for the
time.
love of
Do leave
God.
a review on iTunes. 6 out of 5 stars is fantastic. If you watch us on YouTube, please do subscribe as well. That'd be great. But until the next time, from the Trap Pack even, it's adios. And take care out there, folks, as Lick Lincoln reaches for the final outro, clicks it,
Absolute
and
shambles.
Sweet FA happens. There we go.
What a shambles. Absolute
God.
shambles.
Oh, well.
Right.
Okay.
Let's go. I'm done. See you later. Bye.
See you later. Bye.